guys, thanks for stopping by. Welcome to ASMR. ASMR showcases spine-chilling stories from Reddit. All will be narrated in a soothing ASMR whisper. So let's find a quiet spot, relax, and dive into the world of whispers and chills with these scary stories from Reddit. The man's head was pounding as he slowly came awake. What a way to start the day. It felt like he was experiencing the worst hangover of his life. He felt groggy, and his entire body was heavy. I sure hope last night was worth it. Whatever I did, I won't be doing that again. Grimacing, he opened his eyes to a blinding white light. His eyes slowly adjusted to the incandescent light buzzing above him in an unfamiliar room. He couldn't recognize the white-tiled ceiling or the dull grey walls. Racking his brain, he tried to remember how he got here from last night, but he was drawing a blank. He would have been more concerned, except this was far from the first time his friends had dumped him in a strange place. Wherever he was, he felt oddly comfortable, surrounded by pillows. Lying there, he relaxed, thinking back to the last thing he could remember. He remembered drinking with 3 of his friends at the bar, but then things started to get fuzzy. Fishing in his pocket, he searched for his phone and hopefully some clues from last night, but his pockets came up completely empty. Okay, that's not great. Panicking about his lost phone, he glanced down to make a startling discovery that he was now dressed in a charcoal suit and wasn't lying in a bed at all, but a coffin. He bit down on his tongue, suppressing the urge to scream out, "Stay calm, stay calm. This is just another dumb prank from your friends. I must have passed out pretty early for them to pull something like this off. Except this prank definitely isn't funny." A few chairs shuffled across the floor and voices began murmuring through the room. Annoyed with the prank, he thought about climbing out of the coffin to confront his friends, but had a better idea. If his friends thought he was still passed out, maybe he'd get the chance to surprise and scare one of them. Settling back into the coffin, he lay stiff as a board, waiting for his chance. The room went quiet as a light tap echoed out across a microphone and someone cleared their throat. He recognised one of his friends starting to speak. David was taken from us far too soon. He was the best friend I've ever had, and there was no one quite like him. People in the audience began to sniffle and cry, intermixing with the speech. Wait, did he really make everyone think I'm actually dead? David had put up with enough. He went to get out of the coffin, slamming his legs into the closed lower half with a thud. In an instant, the room went uncomfortably silent, shifting all attention towards the coffin. Well, I guess the jig is up. Sheepishly, David slowly sat up in the coffin, looking out into the audience, scratching his head. Everyone in the audience was dressed in black, prepared for mourning. While some of the crowd had been crying or donning solemn expressions, now everyone shared the same wide-eyed and shocked look on their face. Even David's best friend, giving the speech, now looked terrified. His friends started slowly backing away from the podium, taking cover behind a large wreath of flowers. The silence in the room was deafening. Everyone seemed frozen in place, waiting to see what would happen. David tried to open his mouth to speak, but his mouth wouldn't open. It had been sewn shut. Panicking, he tried to shout louder, wildly gesturing with his hands, only to have his words come out as a garbled mumble. "Help! Someone has to help me." Squirming back and forth, he started to clumsily pull himself over the side of the coffin. Something felt wrong with his body though, trying to pull himself up over the edge of the coffin. Resting his hand against his left side, the bones were completely smashed. He pressed on his shattered bones, feeling them shift around like marbles, rolling around in a sack. There was no pain, but that didn't stop the fear from welling up. Struggling to hurry out of the coffin, he toppled forward, falling over the side head first onto the floor. Picking himself off the floor, he looked out into the audience to see people's faces in the crowd going pale. One of his friends doubled over, grabbing his mouth, trying his hardest not to vomit. David tried to walk out towards his parents in the ground, stumbling forward. The eerie silence of the room was shattered by a woman's shrill scream from the back of the audience. It was as if the scream cast a spell on the audience, sending them into a frenzied panic. A cascade of screams rippled through the crowd, spreading like wildfire. People made a mad dash for the door with reckless disregard for anything else, knocking chairs and other people out of the way. Hardly anyone in the crowd managed to avoid a shove, knee, or elbow as everyone fought their way out. With the room almost completely empty, David turned to the only person left, limping towards his best friend, who was the only one not to race for the exit. It wasn't because his friend wasn't in a panic. In fact, his friend might have been the most panicked, but was frozen like a statue by the wreath of flowers. As David approached him, he tried to back away, tripping on his own feet and falling to his butt. Enunciating his words, David tried to tell his friend to calm down, but it was no use. Through his stitched-shut mouth, it still came out as a loud jumble. "It's just me. It's David." They both looked at each other with the same confused and terrified expression. While the two friends stared at one another, the emptied room had quietened down. The once serene venue was now a sea of overturned chairs and pamphlets strewn about. A faint police siren sounded off in the distance, reminding the two that time was indeed still going. David shambled towards his friend, sprawled out on the ground. Reaching out, he took his friend by the arm, trying to help him back to his feet. Touching his friend tipped him over the edge, screaming out and kicking his feet in a frenzy. The noise was so loud, ringing in David's ears, that he could barely think straight, but it wasn't just the screaming. The distant sirens were now blaring outside the building. Covering his ears, David tried to block out the noise, but it was overwhelming. Two police officers rushed into the room, drawing their guns. "Freeze!" one of the officers shouted. The words didn't register to David, who could only hear the sharp ringing in his head. Reeling from the sound, David noticed the cops limping towards him, trying again in vain to shout for help through his sewn-together mouth. The cops tightened their grips on their pistols, shouting, "Don't move!" One more stumbling step forward from David, and the police let off a barrage of bullets. The bullets ripped through his suit and what was left of his body, dropping him to the ground. Blood and chemicals began to drain out of David, pooling around his body. Lying on the tiled floor, he started to get a familiar feeling that he couldn't quite place, like a word stuck on the tip of his tongue. The bright overhead light that had blinded him was now going black, narrowing to a pinhole. As the pinhole faded into darkness, the feeling came to him. It was the feeling of death. My friend was a security guard at this recently decommissioned assisted living home. One day, he called me to let me know about the activity he'd been experiencing there. He invited me to come investigate the place. The resident rooms were mostly empty, with the exception of some furniture. Beds, dressers, nightstands. There was a large kitchen on one floor, where there was a dining room, and that too was totally empty of all food and dishes, but the appliances were still there. Not plugged in though, so no sounds. While walking through the place, occasionally a door would open across the hall from the room we were in, or a light would turn on in a room we'd just been. There was even a doll I saw in one scene, then later saw in a different one. Mind you, my friend did not leave my side the entire time, but by far the scariest thing I experienced was music playing over the speakers after I, myself, had seen that it was no longer wired to the stereo system. I was returning alone from a plane trip, and after landing, I was waiting for the passengers in front of me to leave. At some point, I stood up and heard someone saying, "Miss, miss, miss." I didn't look back because I didn't think they were talking to me. However, the person kept calling until I turned around, and I realised that an elderly woman was speaking to me. was 70 years old, had short grey hair, was well dressed, and I believe she was wearing red lipstick. When I turned and looked at her, realizing she was talking to me, she asked, "How are you leaving?" I replied, "I don't know," finding the question strange since I had never seen that woman before and hadn't spoken to her on the plane. I just thought the interaction was weird, and my reaction of simply answering, "I don't know," probably with a confused look, felt odd. I quickly turned, grabbed my suitcase, and rushed out of the plane without looking back. I told some close people about it the day it happened, and they suggested that maybe she knew me. But she never introduced herself, didn't say my name, didn't say, "I know you from somewhere." Others thought maybe she needed help, but she didn't ask for help, just that one question. She could have asked the crew for assistance too. Maybe she mistook me for someone else, but she kept calling Miss multiple times until I looked. Maybe she wanted to share an Uber. I don't know about you, but I would never ask that from a stranger. This happened last year, and at the time I found it strange, mentioned it to some people, and then forgot about it. But this year, I started seeing stories on social media of people claiming they might have encountered vampires or something like that. Just very ordinary encounters, nothing too mystical. I don't believe in any of that, but for some reason, those stories triggered my memory and made me think about this incident again. Thinking about it more deeply this year, I realised that while she was calling Miss and I was standing there looking forward, waiting for the other passengers to leave, there were many people ahead of me. But in the brief moment I turned to look at the elderly woman and answered her, less than a minute, suddenly there was no one left in front of me. I grabbed my suitcase and rushed out of the plane without any obstacles, without having to wait for anyone else. Anyway, I also started thinking about my reaction, just answering, "I don't know," and leaving in a hurry. I could have asked why, but I didn't. I don't know why. The woman wasn't scary or anything. She was just a normal, well-dressed elderly lady with striking blue eyes. I think it was her question that made me want to leave. I don't know. I just wanted to share this story. Hi everyone. I'm currently a college student, so it's been about a decade removed from this incident, but it's been on my mind ever since, and I thought it'd be interesting to see if anyone else has experienced what I have. So, when I was in third grade, I think sometime around that spring, I had a very realistic dream of me just going about my day in elementary school. I remember going to the bathroom, talking to my teacher about some writing assignment, but that's about the extent of what I can recall. I distinctly remember waking up thinking how odd the dream was. The rest of the morning happened as usual, and the first couple of hours of class went without a hitch. That's when the time skip happened. I looked at the clock and it read 9:34. A few minutes later, I remember looking back up at the clock and it reading somewhere around 1. I remember being very confused and asking people around me why the clock read 1 o'clock when it was 9 just a few minutes ago. They all looked at me weird, so I then asked them if we had lunch. One classmate said, "We just had lunch." At this point, I was super freaked out, but didn't want to act like I was scared. I remember telling my teacher about this, and she first told me to drink water, as usual, and then started asking me about things about my day, i.e. my conversation with her about my writing assignment, and that's when it hit me. My dream that I had that night was actually what happened to me in between the time I was supposedly conscious. I told my parents all of this when I went back home, and they were concerned, thinking that I might have been bullied or knocked out unconscious, both of which weren't true. At the end of the day, I decided to move on from it since no one would have believed something like this. Ever since, I've never had an experience like this, and I've always felt nervous or anxious whenever I experience a moment of deja vu, thinking an experience like that could happen again. One night, maybe 3 months ago, I woke up and saw a man's shadowy figure, very bluish grey colour, in the corner of my room, above a chair that my cat was laying on. It looked like he was very tall and like he was wearing a bomber jacket. The shape of his jacket really stood out the most. His arm was outstretched as if he was petting my cat. It happened in seconds. I woke up, lifted my head to take a good look because I wasn't sure what I was seeing. But then it's as if he saw me wake up, turned his head and disappeared into thin air, and I felt something flick my forehead and push my head down, as if to say go back to sleep. I got a headache for the rest of the night, and my forehead felt really hot, almost like a carpet burn feeling. I've had lots of paranormal encounters, but this was really scary because I had no idea who it was, and something actually touched me. A few nights ago, I woke up randomly in the middle of the night and saw a man standing right next to my bed, extremely close to me. What made it even stranger was that he was wearing the exact same clothes I had on that day. I could clearly see his legs and chest, but his face wasn't visible. The moment I saw him, I felt instant fear, turned away quickly, and pulled the blanket over my face. I was too scared to turn back and check if he was still there. Eventually, I fell back asleep without any interruptions. I know that sometimes the brain plays tricks, especially when waking up suddenly, but this experience felt very vivid. I'm also going through personal changes right now. Part of me wonders if that was psychological, like my subconscious processing change in a strange way. At the same time, I can't shake the eerie feeling of seeing a figure that looks so much like me, standing so close, and how real it felt in the moment. I'm a kind of person who usually loves watching horror movies alone at nights, and I've never experienced something like that. But now I'm so terrified that I'm even sleeping with some lights on. I should never have stepped inside. It was a dare. 3 minutes in the house, Sam said, torchlight flickering against the sagging roof. Or you're buying breakfast for a week. Everyone knew about the house, boarded up for years, rotting at the estate's edge. Someone had torn a hole in the fence. Inside, the air was thick with damp and decay. My torch skimmed peeling wallpaper, exposing deep grooves beneath, long, clawed scratches in the walls. Something moved ahead, a slow, wet shifting. I told myself it was water, pipes, but my feet carried me forward, into the yawning doorway of the living room. A figure crouched in the dark, limbs folded inwards, fingers twitching like dying insects. The skin on its back rippled, something pressing against it from beneath. My torch fell from my grip. The thing turned. Not fast, not snap of attention, just a slow, deliberate unfurling, its head lolling towards me. And its face, God, its face. It smiled, but the skin was too loose, the lips stretched too wide. A grin that exposed teeth too small for the mouth that held them. Are you ready? The words oozed, slurred, thick as spoiled milk. I ran through the hallway, past the stairwell, where the carpet plushed beneath my feet like living flesh. The walls shuddered, breathing, the whole house convulsing inwards. The door, where was the door? I tripped, crashed to my knees. Something pressed against my back, a weight, an arm, no more. Something curling, encircling, embracing. A whisper, soft, close. You are ready. I don't remember leaving, but I remember what came after. The hunger. No matter what I ate, what I drank, it gnawed at me, burrowing deeper. Then the changes began. My skin softening, my jaw creaking, reshaping, my lips stretching, widening. At night, I feel my body twist, my limbs curl inward, my bones shift in my sleep, and the hunger still grows. Last night, I heard it again, a whisper, my own voice, but not my own. You are ready. I know what I have to do. I have to go back. The house is waiting. I was fixing my tie when I heard Iris and her mother whispering in the kitchen. This can't continue, her mother said. What would people say? Joseph can hear you, Ma. Course he can, she sighed. Is he coming to the wedding? Yes, Iris said, her tone oddly sad. Iris and I had been inseparable since childhood. She found me alone by the trees, sad and dejected, watching other kids play. Your hair's like autumn leaves, she said with a grin. Do you want to play with us? She extended her hand, and I took it. From that day on, Iris became my world, best friend, confidant, and later lover. Her family never liked me, except Lily, Iris's twin. She was always kind, always cared for me. That's why I was eager to attend her wedding. Lately, something fell off. Iris had changed. Late nights at work, staying with friends more often. I tried not to mind. She was my world, and I wanted to be part of hers. Tonight, after Lily's wedding, I'd propose. It was time. The wedding was outdoors. At the venue, a sandy-haired man smiled at me, until Iris rushed to hug him. Later, during the bouquet toss, Lily threw it straight at Iris, who caught it, blushing. Then, the sandy-haired man knelt before her. No, I screamed. No one noticed, not even Iris. I stumbled into the woods, the only place that felt like home. Dusk had fallen when Iris found me. I'm sorry you had to see that, she whispered. How long have you been cheating on me? My fury made the wind howl. Joseph, I never cheated on you, because we were never together. I stared at her. What are you saying? She looked heartbroken. Do you remember where we first met? The playground, I said. No, you were in the woods, watching us play. You always waited there. A chill ran down my spine. My parents never saw you. No adults did. They thought you were our imaginary friend. But Lily figured it out. She pulled out her phone and showed me an article. Boy 8 found dead. Foster parents arrested for negligence. My hands trembled as I pulled out the ring. Is this ring a lie too? Iris frowned. What ring? I looked down. My fingers held nothing. You've been seeing what you wanted to see, she said gently. I loved you, Joseph, but I have to live my life. It's time for you to move on. Tears blurred my vision. I looked at my hands. They were fading. I love you, I whispered, before disappearing into the shadows. 6 years later, at the playground, Iris watched her son. Be careful, Joe. Nearby, a little girl waved animatedly at the woods. Iris felt a chill. Who is she talking to? Someone asked. Little Joe smiled. That's Joseph. He watches us play. He's a good boy, Mama. Can I invite him over sometime? Heart pounding, Iris looked into the woods. A red-haired boy stood there, waving. I'm a single mum of a 2, soon-to-be 3-year-old boy. We live in a 2-bedroomed basement apartment, and sometimes things feel off. A few months ago, I woke up around 1 a.m. to banging in the storage room, and since the cat did not seem scared, I thought I might be sleeping. Until 2 minutes after it stopped, my son came running in. A few weeks ago, my son stopped wanting to go to bed, complaining that there is a boo-boo in his room. I was watching ghost stories on my phone in my bedroom while he was watching so I just assumed that he had overheard my story. He is a very smart child. I also let him watch The Nightmare Before Christmas at Halloween, and he loved it. I probably should not have let him watch this, and once again until he is much older. I assumed at this that my child had an active imagination, as they do at this age, so I just put him back to bed and told him that there is no boo-boo. Until a couple of nights ago, he stood at my bedroom door, and when I asked him to go back to bed, he started jumping up and down, as 2-year-olds do. Then he told me the lady from the stairs was in his room and wanted to sleep in bed with him. He has not mentioned her since, and I don't bring it up, but he did mention boo-boo last night. I was holding him and sitting in his bed, and he pointed to the door, saying something about boo-boo. I hope this is just his imagination. Or could it be something else? My grandpa died in 2002 when I was pregnant. It was so sad he didn't get to meet his great-grandbaby. Anyway, when my baby was born, she slept in a bassinet. She was only about a week old when this happened. I was asleep, and baby in bassinet. I heard my name in my grandpa's voice. I was sleeping, so it sounded so far away. It didn't stir me. I heard it again. Then heard first name, middle name, in a stern voice, my grandpa's voice. It woke me up. Every time you wake as a new mum, you check the baby. When I checked on her, the receiving blanket was covering her mouth and bunched up over her nose. I freaked out and moved the blanket. She gasped for air. I know my dead grandpa saved her life that night. I was confidently answering a question about the Civil War when the bang sounded outside. Screams erupted. I was paralysed. My answers stuck in my throat while my classmates ducked under their desks. Not as I thought, Dizzler. Not today. Bobby Calwood dragged me to my knees, the two of us crawling under my desk. I couldn't move, scream, or cry. My body was caught between the instinct to scream, escape, or stay silent. I reached for my phone, but my pocket was empty. Bobby's face was pale, lit by his phone as he tried and failed to text his parents. He typed, "I love you, Mum," and deleted it. "I'm scared, Mum," deleted it. I ducked my head, breathing too fast, then too slow, then not at all. Why us? I was supposed to win first place for my baking soda volcano. I was supposed to ask Nathaniel to prom, and he was supposed to reject me politely because he liked boys. I was supposed to graduate and go to college, major in microbiology. When our classroom door rattled, breaking through the barricade, I curled into myself. Screams rang out. I didn't move. I couldn't. Mum was making spaghetti tonight, clamping my hands over my ears. I imagined my day continuing. I finished class. Bang. Next to me, Bobby went limp. I visited Nate and my stupid baking soda volcano. Bang. Screams bled into whimpers, then silence. I didn't move. Lunch, mystery meat, pudding. When the footsteps stopped, so did my train of thought. They moved forward, then back, teasing. In the corner of my eye, a figure loomed. Bang! "Hannah, sweetie, you're crying." I blinked. I could still feel Bobby's body, ice cold against me. No, hers. Her name was Lucy. She was 17. Mrs. Jefferson stood over me wearing a wide smile. She lifted the headset from my head, and I blinked back, the intense buzzing light above me. Her physical sensations were still there. I was so cold. I was still curled into myself, like she was, trying to reach for Bobby. I swiped at my eyes, my hands trembling. All around me, my classmates were lifting their headsets. I was the only one crying. I could taste spaghetti-flavoured bile. Her last lingering shriek contorted in my throat. "Are you alright?" my elementary school teacher asked. I nodded. Mrs. Jefferson sighed. "I know it's not nice." She pulled a small cartridge from the headset and held it up. In 2029, our great country eliminated school tragedies. Lucer, the first living consciousness extracted from the brain, who trains children to be very careful with a firearm. She gave her life for a safer America. She smiled broadly. We wouldn't be here without Lucer, a safer America that puts children first. In fact, we've only had 370 school tragedies this year. Come on, everyone, thank Lucer. The bell rang. Grabbing my backpack and gun, I tucked it between my copy of The Brave Pilgrims. Thanks, Lucer. That concludes today's Scary Reddit stories. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this creepy journey, don't forget to like and subscribe. Please also leave your own spooky experiences below in the